So we're looking at the general types of relationships that everything falls in under, and I'll explain that in a bit, but we'll get the general ones out first. First one we looked at was friendship. Second one, leadership or leader. Third one is follower. The fourth one is an abuser or abusive. Abusive in Webster is characterized by wrong or improper use or action, especially corrupt, abusive financial practices, for example. Using harsh, insulting language, characterized by or serving for abuse. Abusive language, again, they use as an example. Or personally injurious, injuring someone, abusive behavior, whatever. Here, there is an authority structure. In an abusive relationship, there is an authority structure, but one person is forced to submit to the other. It's not a willing thing, it's a force. The relationship revolves around one person, and it's not the receiver, it's the abuser. And the relationship is built on at the expense of the receiver, or the one who's being abused, but it revolves around the abuser. You know, this probably is not rocket science, but this relationship doesn't work for discipling. Just pointing it out. This won't work. Abuse involves belittling or subtracting from the other person. We insult them, we poke fun at them, snide remarks. Now, there are times we think we're building a relationship with someone where in reality we're abusing them. Listen again. We insult them, poke fun at them. One rule of thumb about humor is it's supposed to always be about us first. You make fun of something, you make fun of yourself. Now, unless you have a really good relationship with someone, then you can jump in and they know it's just having fun and it's not an insult or whatever. But a lot of times, an abuser never makes fun of themselves. They'll poke out at someone else and make fun of something in their life. Snide remarks, embarrass them, make them feel stupid or foolish. The thing that I want to point out of this, I'm not going to spend a lot of time here because we know it's not a godly relationship, but the thing I want to point out here is this type of posture is especially prevalent in European cultures. If you're from a European descent, like this whole area is pretty much European. Now, I'm not saying everybody here has it, but the prevalence of abuse in a European culture, shaming the other person, making them feel stupid, we correct behavior by making them feel dumb about what they did. And we call it discipline. And it's normal for European culture to do that, or shaming them. One of the things that I just find hilarious is if there's a threesome, like Barb and I are talking and Tammy's there, and I am trying to make a point about Tammy where she needs to get it together, but I don't have the courage to actually talk to her about it. I'll say something like, now this one over here, she could learn a few things. Have you ever heard that here? I hear that all the time. Now this one over here. Or they'll talk about their children that way. You know, they got their hand on their head or whatever. Now this one, for example. And it's like, okay, this is going to go awry. You know, it's just got that feeling. It's not going to go well. And we'll say something like, you know, they might not have been born with, I love them, but, and we'll say something shaming and they feel bad. And in our mind, we think we're helping them because now they're going to change the behavior we just talked about. That's abuse. That's not discipline, that's abuse. They're going to come away from that feeling belittled, shamed, put down, less than, like a victim. And it happens in European culture a lot, and it does not work in discipleship mentoring situations. Number 5, fifth general type of relationship is the victim. This also, you've got an abuser, you've got a victim. Webster says, he's got a big definition for this one. Won't read it all. A living being sacrificed to a deity, well, that would be a victim. One that is acted on and usually adversely affected by a force or agent. The schools or victim's social system, well, possibly. One that is injured, destroyed, or sacrificed under any of various conditions, a victim of cancer, a victim of auto crash, a murder victim, things like that. One that is subjected to oppression, hardship, or mistreatment. That would probably be more what we're talking about here. The last one, not either. I hope we're not doing the last one that is tricked or duped, a con man's victim. We're discipling someone, so we con them out of money. I'm going to invest into your life, and I like to go out and eat when I talk to my people. So if you pick up the tab every time we go out and eat, I'll give you some of my wisdom. That's a con man. You're duping that person. That's not how you want to invest in them. Don't do that. So the second one there is probably a victim is someone who is subjected to oppression, hardship, or mistreatment. They give an example of a victim of political attacks. Well, you can be a victim of political attacks. You can be a victim of a boss. You can be a victim of a boyfriend. You can be a victim of a parent. But you're subjected to oppression, hardship, mistreatment. Again, there is an authority structure here, but it's not for the best of the victim. The victim has little to no voice in this relationship. The relationship is focused on pleasing the abuser or the perpetrator at the victim's expense. And again, victims may do what you're telling them to do, but it's not because there's a deep character change inside of them. They're doing it because they're afraid of you. They're afraid of what you'll do to them if they don't do it. So therefore, again, it doesn't take a lot of logic, but it doesn't work for true discipling. Well, I told so-and-so, and now they're doing what I said. And what were the consequences you hung over their head if they didn't? Or is this a pure character change inside of them and they saw the light and it's like, okay, I'll do that. I see that. Makes sense to me. Or is it, oh man, when I'm around there, I better keep my dots on the T's and the I's and everything, just correct posture, and because it's going to go bad for me. Yeah, they'll do what you want them to do until they feel free enough that you can't do anything about it. Now it's back to the same old, same old. There's no character change. So it doesn't work for discipling. Number 6, manager. 6th general type of relationship. Manager, someone who is in charge of a business or a department. That's what Webster says. Someone who directs the training and performance of a sports team, etc., baseball team. Someone who directs the professional career of an entertainer or athlete. A manager is someone who's in charge and they direct how things should go. Now, next month, I'm going to go into this real heavily because I don't think we realize how management has skewed in our culture how we look at relationships, the concept of a management relationship. So the next evening, we'll go into it heavily. Now I'm just introducing you to the concept of it. There is an authority structure with a manager. The person is in charge. They direct others and give them directions and orders and etc. Typically, a manager isn't about the client they're managing. Therefore, again, it doesn't work in discipleship or mentoring. A manager at a company is more concerned about what the company has told them to carry out than how you feel about what they're saying. Right? Their first concern is their job. Their job will prosper and thrive if they please the company, not the person working for them. The person working for them is to make them look good. So this definitely falls more in the contract thing. I will hire you, Eric, if you do thus, 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 and thus, and the better you do it, the better I'll like you in your job. Why? Because it makes me look good to the company or the boss or the owner. Yeah. Now, if you can't do the job well and you start really messing up, you're gone. I don't care what excuses you got. You're gone, and I'll put somebody in to replace you. Why? Because if I keep you there, they're going to look at me and say, what are you doing? So my true interests are more contract level. You are here for my benefit as I am here for their benefit. So as long as you produce that way, we're good. You quit producing that way, your history. Find a different job. I'll hire somebody else to do your job for you. So the manager's focus is typically not on the recipient. They're managing the recipient. Their focus is on what the company is saying or what the boss is saying or the leadership is saying. Typical. Now, there are a few exceptions to that. If you hire someone to manage your estate, you now are the boss. Have you ever heard of that? Mm-hmm. Grandma died. Grandpa was gone 20 years ago. We've got this huge estate. What are we going to do with it? Let's hire someone to manage it, disperse it, take care of it. Well, now you are the boss and the recipient. So in that way, yeah, now your interests are first. Sometimes a performer can be the same thing. Like it says up there, directs the professional career of an entertainer. The entertainer or the performer or the athlete is the boss, but they're also the recipient of what the manager can do for them. So they're both. But generally in America, managers are not in it for the recipient. They're in it for the boss, and they're two separate people. They're two separate entities. Management approach is deeply ingrained into our society. It's gotten in the church, it's gotten in families, it's gotten in everything, and it does not work in discipling or interpersonal leadership relationships. It does not work. And it's one of the reasons I think the church is handicapped and crippled, and we don't do a good job of discipling because we have been trained in the management approach, and it doesn't work. So that's why in the next session we're going to take quite a bit of time and talk about it. But here I just introduce you to it. So here's the last of the 7 major types of relationships. Interdependent. This means they are mutually dependent or depending on each other mutually or equally. Interdependent comes from the Latin word inter, meaning among or between, and dependere, which means to hang from or be dependent on. When two people are interdependent, they have a sense of dependency between them. A healthy marriage, married couples are often interdependent. A healthy marriage is interdependent. There's a lot of sick marriages where one is the abuser, one's the victim, one is the leader, and the other is a codependent follower who never will have any rights or, There's a lot of sick marriages too, but a healthy one is interdependent. Should be. There is typically an authority structure in an interdependent relationship, but it oscillates. It moves like, I'll just use my wife and I. It moves back and forth on the basis of there's things I realize she does better than me. So quit trying to be the man of the house, male, macho, whatever you want to call it, and do everything the best and whatever it is, she just has to deal with it. No, there's things she does better than me. And I am dependent on her to do those. And there are things I do better than her, and she is dependent on me to do those. And it will oscillate back and forth, and the relationship between us is seen much more as co-equal than it is an authority structure. There is an authority. There's a time when, like, you go to TBO, she works in that realm much better than I, and I just try to stay out. She'll invite me in sometimes, and I'll go in and support her, but I just try to stay out of it. She's better than me. And I depend on her to do that. And then there's other settings, if it's changing the oil in the car. She's good with me doing that. And she depends on me to do that and take care of the vehicles. And she says, I'm so thankful I married a husband that I never have to worry about driving a piece of junk. You try to take care of them, and if something breaks down, it's not because of neglect. Things just happen. So she's depending on me to do that. So there's an interdependent thing here, and I could give you lots of examples. But there is an authority structure. If she crawled out from underneath the car, she jokes about it. She says, someday you're going to come home, you're going to find me in the shed under the car. I'm changing the oil. And she jokes about it because it's like, I would walk in going, what are you doing? Because this is not your forte. What plug did you pull out and what did you drain? Just go do what you do best and let me take care of this, kind of thing. So we know there's an authority structure here, and, we'll joke about it. But it's interdependent. When no goal or objective is in process, we're not trying to accomplish any specific thing, that's where a non-codependent friendship is. We enjoy being together. We enjoy each other's interests. We have cultured that. You don't get married, most people, some do. It's like, have at it, man, that was awesome. But most people that I talk to, when you get married, you don't all have the same interests. In fact, some of the things grind each other. So you have to culture the interests you like and you major on those, and you grow in some things you don't like. And you learn to, at the very least, go along with it happily, you know. But you culture it, you work on it, and some things it's like, honey, just go do that. I'm good. Are you sure you don't want to come? No, I'm pretty sure. You have at it. I'll be happy here to change the oil in the car. You just go do what you want to do. But if that's all of life, you don't have a good marriage. So you have those times. We're not after any specific objective, but we spend time together. We like each other's interests. We try to focus on the things that we do enjoy together, and not, you know, if we have a day off, we're not sitting across the table looking at each other, and I'm going, I wanted to do this. She says, you know I don't like to do that. I want to do this. I ain't doing that. And we sit there in deadlock. Well, let's do something we both like. You know, let's try to be interdependent, not codependent, or that kind of thing. It's two people working together to reach a common goal. They can work individually as well, though. That's what makes them interdependent. They're not codependent. I can't do this without my husband. Well, what can you do? Well, there's really not much I can do in life without my husband. I mean, if he ever went away, our finances would be gone, and I wouldn't know anything about the house, and I wouldn't know anything about how to make a living, and I know nothing without my husband. You're codependent. That's not interdependent. That's codependent. We need to be two whole human beings bringing what we have together. Okay? Any one of these, and now you can put up the one for all 7 of them, any one of these can become codependent where they get sick, and we don't want to go there. But let me show you how these are major general categories. A marriage can pick up any one of these. Marriage, you can be a friend with your partner. You can posture that marriage as a leader or a follower, which may not turn out good. You can posture it as an abuser, controller to a victim, which I can guarantee you that won't turn out good. You can posture it as a manager. A lot of husbands posture their relationship with their wives as managers. They tell them what they're expecting. They tell them what to do, and when they come home, it better be there. I'm just giving orders. I'm shooting out. I'm in charge. I'm the head kingpin here, and I'm the manager, which is either going to turn her into a follower if she's really godly and not get bitter with you, or it's going to turn her into a victim who's being abused. Or you can have a marriage that's interdependent. No matter what you bring up, parents to children, any of those, I don't know what kind of relationship you run, but any of those can be. You bring up a company. There's companies that run their company on the basis of abusers and victims. And man, the employees are nothing. Yeah. They're just there to produce. And what you want and what you like and any desires you have, forget it. You're going to do what we want. It doesn't make any difference what you bring up. It can fall into any of those. You say, well, why are you pointing that out? Because what kind of relationships do you usually thrive in? If you're an abuser, you're going to have to change that before you try to disciple somebody. If you're a victim, you're going to have to change that before you try to disciple somebody. Victims are not very good at leading. They're good at cringing and just going along with whatever's happening. If you come from the manager perspective, you won't disciple people very well. It won't work. There's only 3 there that actually work for discipling, with a slight touch of the 4th. Leader, follower, interdependent is what we want it to grow into. It begins with leader, follower, with a slight touch of friend. And as it develops and grows and flourishes, it will become interdependent friends. But to begin with, we're looking at leader, follower, with just a slight touch of friend. Because typically, if we don't have anything in common with someone, we won't listen to them. So here's a clue for the person who's the leader. You don't wait for the person you're trying to help to become interested in what you like. You're leading this. You find something in their life that's interesting and show your interest in it, whether they ever reciprocate on that or not. Well, I had them over and we talked about things. It just doesn't seem like there's much in common. Poor leadership. Poor leadership. There's got to be something in this person's life that you can get interested in.
Yeah, amen.
Well, there's not everything I listen to, I know nothing about. Then study something. Get into something that you can relate to them on and have a little bit of emotional connection so that the leader-follower can establish. Like the guy who started with me. Hey, let me show you my ponds. You interested in fishing? I grew up in North Dakota. You got to drive 80 miles to find water. I didn't do much fishing. But I don't know, maybe I am. Show me. So he hooked me, not to use a pun there, but he hooked me, and then he set the posture of the relationship. Now, when he set the posture, he was coming from what I'm interested in, my entire career. He wasn't saying, hey, I got a good relationship for you. You can fish with me with every week, and we'll hang out. And it wasn't about him. His posture was, you're in the ministry, you're young, I don't want to see you hurt. And I've seen some things that I might be able to help you with. So now his whole interest shifted to the recipient. Follow that? So no matter what relationship there, we have to peg who we are and what we operate in. Because we don't all operate like God operates. In fact, I'd be pretty sure to say none of us operate completely like God operates. We're still on this road of growing and improving and trying to change it. Now, when you come to these relationships, they can be an intimate, close relationship. I mean, you know the person, you know them well, you know them thoroughly. You know them very, an intimate relationship. Typically, those are close physical proximity. When you're intimate with someone, they're not living in Texas and you're living here. That distance tends to shrink intimacy. They're usually close that you have contact with on an ongoing basis. It can be an emotionally involved relationship. Go back to you got that right there? Okay, good. No, you went one too far ahead. Back up to the 7 and just hold it there for a second. I'll tell you when to jump ahead. It can be an emotionally involved relationship. You can be being influenced and affected by a movie star or a singer you've never met. And they're leading you. They're leading you by their music. They're leading you by what they say in a movie. And you take that in, and it's like, wow, that's good. I'm going to do that. I want to dress like this singer or like this movie star. I want to be like them. Literally, there is an interpersonal leadership relationship going on with someone who doesn't know you. But you postured yourself as a follower. So boom, there you are. It can be a casual relationship, someone you rarely have contact with. For instance, my pastor, I consider to have a casual relationship with him. He knows me, he recognizes me, he knows me by name, he knows things about my life. I see him once a year, maybe twice. And the last time we sat down and had a long conversation is when he was here at the church, which was the spring of 2013. But undoubtedly, he's a leader to me. And we have an interpersonal relationship. He's had a huge influence on my life. You say, well, why are you bringing these up? To kick out the concepts we have of what we think is needed to have a leadership position in someone's life. Because usually we tie it to friendship. Well, I can't lead someone unless I'm their friend. The minimum number of leading that happens in friendship relationships. Because it doesn't work well. Plus, most leading takes place seriously. Most leading takes place from people who are casual relationships or you don't even know them. All these books we read and we glean information from, that changes our life. And we've never seen this person. We've never met this person. We've never shook their hand. But there is an interpersonal relationship with them that has been established. And it falls in under one of these. They postured themselves as a leader and wrote the book or made the video. You postured yourself as a follower and listened or read. That's simple. It wasn't built on fishing. It wasn't built on how much time we spend together. It wasn't built on doing the Super Bowl together. It wasn't built on any of that stuff. But they had a huge impact in your life. It can be very distant relationship. I just explained one of those. Casual, Brother Caseman and I know him, but I don't know him well. But yet it can be a very distant relationship. I like listening to ministers I've never met. I may never meet. You know, I didn't know David Wilkerson at all. And David Wilkerson didn't know me. He had a huge impact in my life. Huge impact. There was a relationship between me and him that was very personal, even though he didn't know it. I knew it. See, so this thing is much, much, much bigger than the little can we usually try to set it into. We're having effect on many, 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 many more people than the little can we like to place it into sometimes. And then you can have a discipling relationship or a mentor relationship, interpersonal leadership relationship with someone who's not even alive, if you look at it that way. This last summer, because of different things that happened, Mary developed a very close relationship with Dad Hagen, who is dead. She's probably listened to almost everything he's got on YouTube. Yeah. Why? She wanted to glean from him. Mm-hmm. She wanted to grow. She knew he had something that could be imparted into her. The man's not even alive. And she goes around the house quoting him. Yeah. And then she'll laugh sometimes. She'll say, you know, Brother Hagen told me this morning. It's like, oh, so you sat down a coffee or something, you know. See, to her, this is a very personal relationship. He's dead and gone. But he's having a huge impact on her life. So it's you know, I can give you a lot of examples of that one. That one, to me, is probably bigger for, depending upon who you are and what you are doing in society, that one's probably has, if you were going to put numbers to paper as to how many people are being affected by interpersonal relationships with someone they've never met, they could already be dead, they may never know. Number-wise, I know there's no, to my knowledge, there's no poll on this. But numbers-wise, I think that's the biggest one. Hands down. I will present, like on leadership material. John Maxwell has wonderful material on leadership material. I've taken some of that, changed my life in some areas. I will represent it to you as being, this is awesome. I don't know the man. I've never met the man. I've spent 0 time with the man. So I'm saying that to try to break our thinking open a little bit. You might be at work, you might be leading someone just by simply being who you are, and you don't even know you're leading them. Yeah. And they're looking at you like, wow, anytime this person opens their mouth by the bubbler, I want to stand there and listen because they got good stuff to say. And you don't even know it's happening. Yeah. You don't have to have this intimate, close, we're buds relationship to have an interpersonal or mentoring discipleship relationship. Let me give you one more thought on that. Going with the people who are dead and gone. Our founding fathers, for those of us who pay attention and care, have a huge impact on us. Yeah. Their writings and things they've said and things they've put into motion have a huge impact on us. Mm-hmm. There is some stuff that George Washington said and did, or Lincoln said and did, that has personally affected me. That is an interpersonal leadership relationship. Yeah. And they're gone hundreds of years. Do you realize military generals and the strategies they've used? There are wars being fought now that determines the future of a country on the basis of things that a general wrote down years and years and years ago. And that guy is still personally leading the battle today in certain areas, certain ways. Yeah. It's well, people dead and gone. Of course, this for us is a little different because to us he's alive, but Jesus and the disciples. I mean, 2,000 years ago, and I have a personal relationship with Jesus, and I know Paul pretty well too by his writings. I can't say he's ever showed up and talked to me, I don't think he ever will. If he does, I better double check, what's going on. But these people have huge effect on us. So for this course, we're going to spend most of the time focused on interpersonal leadership relationships, discipling, mentoring kind of stuff. But it's not going to look like we typically go, oh, well, that means friends and people we're close to. No, not necessarily. It's comprised of a leader and a follower. Interpersonal leadership where we are personally involved somehow, ranging from intimate to casual. Intimate can be close. Casual can be further out. Most of us are not going to be so much in the distant relationship. Most of us are not into putting messages on YouTube or writing books or this, that, and the other. So the distant thing probably doesn't apply to most of us, but intimate and casual does. Intimate, very close proximity, casual, personal contact, a fair amount of time together. We know the person, etc. Distant won't reach in as much here, but intimate and casual will. Let me make one more point, and then we'll open for questions. I'll have said enough for tonight. Dealing with the intimate and the casual, and I'm going to use my wife as an example here. When she counsels, that can range from, obviously she knows a person, obviously she knows their name, so it can be casual. And then again, if they spend a lot of time, it can become very intimate, and they know each other very well, and she knows a lot about the person's life, etc. Now, to this point, do you know why her counseling and being in that realm has been so productive in building this church and building the growth of this body? Because it's a form of discipleship. Counseling is a form of discipleship. You're mentoring, you're coaching, you're discipling. You're building a relationship with this person, a leadership type of relationship. They're coming to you, although there has been times I've counseled people and I've had to remind them when they started telling me what was right and wrong. I had to remind them which side of the desk we were sitting on. I didn't come to you for counseling. You came to me, so listen to me. If you don't like it, just don't come back. But don't waste my time sitting here telling me where I'm wrong. Why did you come? But anyway, there is a posture that's taken. As a counselor, you're the leader. As the person who's coming for counsel, you're posturing yourself to be imparted into. That is discipling. That's what that is. And when what's imparted into you helps you, a relationship forms. It's an interpersonal leadership relationship. And they want to come back for more counseling. Or they'll want to come to the service to hear more. Maybe there's stuff here that could help me in other areas of life. And they follow in a follower leader type of situation, and it causes the church to develop and build. Now here's the application. Why do some people who've been in counseling come to the church? They've come for a year, 6 months, whatever, and it seemed like they were coming pretty consistently, and all of a sudden it's less and less and less, and they go away. Because she probably quit counseling them. And nobody else stepped up to build that interpersonal leadership relationship with them. No one else stepped in to fill the void. Because she had to move on to new people, and or she brought them as far as she could, and now they're in the church, and they're here, they're involved, they're active, so she moves on to a new person and is not spending the time with them anymore. But they're not to the point to float their own boat yet. That's where the body is needed. Going back to the first verse we read, it will build itself up as each part does its work. See, that's where spiritual adoption, somebody's got to be a spiritual parent to help out and step in and see what we can do, and or a discipler to get in and get involved in discipleship, or a mentor to get in and mentor. Or what happens is I can only handle so many people, Mary can only handle so many people, and we have to stay active in those 5 people's lives or they'll drift away. We are now producing nothing. We're producing in those 5, but like Mary's more of an evangelist. She's a gatherer. Well, once she's gathered 5, she's not gathering anymore. So she needs to be able to hand those 5 off and get another 5. And disperse those 5 and get another 5. For that to happen, each part has to do its work. We have to get involved in interpersonal leadership. Relationships where we are involved with another person's life. When we don't get involved as a body, here's what Jesus said, and here's was Jesus' prayer. When we don't get involved as a body, it becomes too big a harvest with too few laborers. And you start losing the harvest, is what happens. So that's why Jesus said, pray that there's more laborers that go into the harvest. It's not for a lack of harvest. It's for a lack of laborers who will help with the harvest, because the harvest is too big, too few laborers, and you lose the harvest. I grew up on a farm, and we had thousands of acres of grain, and when it was harvest time, everything came to a stop. And everybody had their assigned jobs. And you did those. There's one thing that farmers don't have or ranchers don't have the advantage of: calling in sick. I watched my dad walk out of the bedroom, sweat pouring off of him. He couldn't eat. He couldn't keep anything down. He would chew on ice, because if he drank anything, he threw it back up, and he climbed in that combine. He combined all day long. You know why? Because if he don't, we're going to lose the harvest. Because 2 days from now, it may rain. And this stuff's laying on the ground. It's a whole different mentality. And I had my jobs. And he's combining. Who's taking it home? That was part of my job. You can combine till the trucks are full and then put it on the ground, and if nobody takes it home, you still lost the harvest. You got too few laborers. As each part does its work, the body builds itself up. And it works really well. Everybody's operating in it. So I see that as a huge emphasis of where the Holy Spirit's trying to go. And that's what this whole course over the winter is going to be about, challenging us and giving us some insight and help motivate us to go that direction. Because we can just go there so quickly if each part does its work. I mean, the harvest there's not a lack of harvest, it's a lack of laborers. Okay, so we're going to open for questions. There's a mic here and a mic there. Dave, could you take that mic and kind of wander with it? And JP, could you take this mic and wander with it? And whoever's got the first question, put your hand in the air. Did you have your hand in the air already? Okay, you got the first question then. Well, I'll go with one, and then we'll go from there. We will spend probably 20 minutes on questions. We can go to 10 to 9 or 9, whatever you're comfortable with. I don't want to go too late. But 20 minutes would get us to 10 to 9. So go for it.
So I guess the key one there then would be in the management analogy, and understanding, from my perspective, understanding that good management, real management that's worth paying for, has all of these real leadership, discipleship aspects in it. But there's a point where, a guy breaks so many things or so many doors, and at some point you have to go, we can't take this loss financially. Mm-hmm. Now, there's that aspect flows over into the body in some things as well. If I use an example that will never happen. If the people who handle our offerings, if all of a sudden money was to start disappearing, there would come we can't have that. How do we balance that, even the combining analogy that you used there at the end, the seriousness of the work of the kingdom, and of needing to move forward, without sacrificing people and where they need to grow and that sort of stuff. And that, I mean, obviously it's a hard balance, and I get that it has to just be by the Spirit, but can you get into any more detail on even how to do that, or how to?
Good godly management is needed. It comes into play once someone's discipled, and that we'll get into the next time we get together.
Okay.
You can't manage someone as a disciple. Once they're discipled, you can now manage them, and I'll explain the difference on that.
Sure. You tell me I got to wait a month for that answer?
You're going to have to wait a month for that. That's what happens when you get a preview of what's coming. It's like,
Right.
But, for instance, the offering analogy. When someone's been given a job, now, presumably they're mature enough to handle the offering before we ever gave it to them.
That's why I was saying we don't have to
Yeah.
worry about this
So
happening.
hopefully we're there. But once they start mishandling it, they're no longer following. They have decided to go and do their own thing. That's when, in any situation of a leadership situation, the best, and this again is next month, and I don't want to lose all my thunder for next month, but one of the best pictures of leadership versus management is leadership has to do with apprentices. Most of this country used to be operated on the apprentice system. It ran totally different than it runs now. But even in an apprentice situation, when the boss or the leader who's imparting into this person, and they're the apprentice, or they're the trainee, they're the disciple, they're the ones learning, the pupil, once they quit following the leader, they're going to lose their apprenticeship.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So as we try to help people and impart into them, posture is everything here.
Yeah, that makes sense. That actually in the business world plays out. That there's guys that they get a lot more slack because they do stay postured that way, where they're
Yeah.
willing to learn and willing to, and even if it takes them 100 times,
Yeah. And if they do mess up, they come to the boss and say, "I am so sorry I messed this up," versus
Yeah.
the other guy will hide it
Yeah.
and try to blame it on somebody else.
Right.
And once you do find out, then it's like,
Then you got to handle it differently.
then you got to handle it
Yeah,
because
that
you're
makes
not
sense.
following anymore.
Yeah.
Now you're trying to lead it a different direction.
Very key.
Okay? All right. Anybody else got a question?
I got more if nobody's going to raise their hand. But
Yeah.
if somebody's got them. Just don't be shy.
Give a little time here. See if anybody else got a question. All right. Way over here.
Would you know if God has chosen someone to mentor you, or would you just be annoyed at their prideful attitude? If you're looking for a friendship and not someone to lead you, that relationship doesn't seem to work. It just buzzes on you.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, they usually seem controlling, dominating, and manipulating.
Mm-hmm.
And is a leader or mentor someone you like, or can they grate on your nerve?
Okay. I heard two questions in there for sure. So give me the first one again. Read the first part, and I'll tell you where to stop.
Would you know if God has chosen someone to mentor you?
Maybe.
Okay.
I know that's a good, solid answer. If you will know if you're looking for help in an area. God will bring someone along, and you go, "Oh, they could probably help me because they've got experience here I don't." If you're not looking for input, God may bring someone along, offer to help you. You just brush them off. You may not know this was a God-sent person, but you weren't postured right. You weren't looking for God to bring a person to your life to help you. So you might see it, you might not. Depends upon your posture, your attitude, your heart.
So they could, like, annoy you.
They could.
And, like, you don't want to
Why don't you keep your nose out of my business?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
it might be God.
okay.
Of course, it could be God, and they don't know. You got another question, so don't give it away yet. You had a second one in there a little deeper, but let me answer this. Maybe God is sending them, but their relationship skills are still pretty rough, and they're presenting to you in such a way that's controlling, manipulative, whatever. And God's going, no. And he'll go looking for someone else and send another person. He gave them a chance, but they fell into some bad habits, and therefore you bypassed on them, and you should. Typically people who, and I think this was tied to your second question, typically people who come across controlling, manipulative, or dominating, they're not in it for you. They're in it, they say they're in it for you, but they're in it to get something from you. Was that kind of the second question?
Yeah, and then I had, is a leader or mentor someone you like, or can they grate on your nerves?
They can grind on you.
You are obviously already answered that.
Yeah, they can grind on you. And see, that's where we really have to be careful, because people that grind on us, we tend to push away. We don't want to hear it. But they can do things that grind on you. I'm trying to think of an example right up front. Well, I'll give you an example. And I'll use the one that I talked about earlier. Mary has been very much into Dad Hagin. I like Dad Hagin. I listen to Dad Hagin. I got no problem with that. But there is something about him that grinds on me, that I can only take so much at a time. He tends to have this high, whiny, southern drawl voice. I mean, he does. That's him. That's who he is. That's who God made him. It's not a bad thing, but it irritates me. Now, I can either grow in that area and just overlook it and say, hey, that's who God made him. Get over it, Vern. Glean from him what you can. Or I can focus so much on the way he talks that I just refuse to listen to him, and he will never lead me anyplace, because not him, it's my issues. But, I think the guy's great. He's my pastor. He was his pastor. Brother Caseman's pastor was Brother Hagin. And it's like, I've listened to a lot of stuff, and he's been accused of all kinds of things, so I listen to a lot of things to see if he actually says that. He doesn't. But in the course of those hours of listening, that nasally southern thing, I didn't grow up with that. That ain't me. And it grinds on me. But I have to be mature enough to go beyond that to let the man impart into me. That make any sense? It's just an example. Anybody else got anything? Okay.
You kind of hit at the end. It's more of a comment than a question, but the grinding, you just have to make sure it's not a personal trait grinding issue versus something where the Holy Spirit's working on you, where you feel like it's grinding to work something out.
Yeah.
Right, so you don't push it away because, I don't like what they're saying, when it's really the Holy Spirit's trying to say, this needs to change.
Yeah. And we can do that too, to where we can push it away because I don't like what they're saying. It's grinding on me. And in reality, it's God trying to get a message to you. Okay, we got a mic over here.
What if you're a leader in the church here, and you have somebody that wants to take your position, and so they start to, how can I say this, put you down to other people? I can do a better job. Why is Bonnie, say me, in that position? I have more schooling and all that. How would you handle something like that when you feel like you're being put down because of the position that you're in, and somebody smarter wants that position?
Go to the person who's over you.
Oh, okay.
Go to the person who's over you, explain what you think you're seeing, and let them deal with it. Because if what you're seeing is accurate, no matter how you try to deal with it, it's probably going to go awry. Oh, okay. I'd go to the person over me. Interpersonally, you have one obligation towards this person, to love them. Okay. I mean, as Christians, no matter what's happening around us or happening to us, we, number one, have to love them. That doesn't mean we can't have boundaries. God loves us unconditionally, but God has boundaries. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you're only going this far, thus saith the Lord, but yet he still loves us. Mm-hmm. He just doesn't agree with us, and he has boundaries and so forth. So as Christians, as believers, especially if we want to lead somebody, we've got to first love them. Now I'm getting ahead of myself, but managers don't have to love their recipient. they manage their recipient. Leaders have to love them or you won't lead them. Because I'll just give you a little hint. There are things about me that grind on you. Don't shake your head yes, Dave. That was the wrong time. Yes, amen, brother. I agree with you. Hit that one, man. But at the same token, there are things in you that grind me. There's only one thing that will make this thing flow smoothly. Love. I'm in the best of it for you. You're in the best of it for me. And love covers a multitude of sins. You know, so it's in a leadership setting, we think friendship. Well, I'm going to try to find someone I can lead who I really get along with. You're not talking leadership, you're talking friendship. People you lead, the better leader you are, the more, let's say it this way, the more obnoxious person God will bring to you because you're capable of doing it where others are not. I mean, it's serious. God needs people to help everybody. And there's certain people that are hard to help because they've really been hurt and damaged in life, and they're carrying a lot of wounds, and their personality's been damaged, and they're frustrating people. God says, who do I have that is mature enough I can shove this person into their life, and they'll work with them even though they are a frustrating person? Because God loves them too. So don't expect him, the harder the cases he's bringing to you, the bigger the compliment it is to you from God. Why would God bring this person in my life? Because he thinks you can actually do it. I don't want to. Well, you get to grow a little more, but God thinks you can do it. So don't look for, I'm just waiting for God to bring someone that I really get along with and I'll lead them. The better you get at this, the more difficult cases he's going to give you. It's like a doctor. The better the doctor gets, the more specialized they get. And the most difficult cases that happen, people will fly across the country to find someone who I think can do this. Versus, well, I've done it twice, so I don't want you, So from God's perspective, it's a compliment to us. When he shoves someone into our life, it's like, oh my, these people have issues. I don't know if I can, it's going to make you go to God to get help. It's going to make you get on your knees to pray through some of your own things. But the compliment is God brought him and said, here you go. I love this person. There's an eternity in front of them, and I believe you can help them. That's a compliment from God. Seriously. Okay, one right up here, and we'll probably be done.
One of the things that I have seen surface in my experience, and I'm not saying this is across the board the rule, but I've seen in younger generation teenagers that the statement, and if you're trying to mentor them or trying to have influence in their life, they will, the statement or the idea they'll come across is well, it's just the way I feel, and they'll say something that is very cutting and very, it's meant to kind of
shove you back.
Yeah, wipe you back.
Shove you back.
And in my mind, I'm thinking, well, speaking the truth in love and taking that one scripture. And in my mind, I've always kind of just divided it out by is it opinion or is it actual truth? Because in my mind, that's two different things. An opinion is one deal. If it's truth, good. In mentorship or in discipleship, speaking the truth in love or speaking the opinion in love, how do you divide that out so that you still communicate to them that you stay still impacting their life, but yet shove that back, so to speak?
Well, you saved the hardest question for last, huh? Just because we do what God tells us to do does not guarantee a certain result. because we're working with free will agents here. That teenager, whoever it is, has a free will. And you may speak the truth in love to them, and they reject the truth or the love. Either one. They have the right to do that. And sadly to say, people do. The measurement in my mind is, I try to do two things. One is listen to the Spirit. Secondly is hold myself accountable to people I trust. That's why I come to you as one of the elders and I say, did this morning go okay? Because I'm holding myself accountable to you, because sometimes I think I'm speaking the truth in love, and it may come out crossways. And I might have to go back and revisit something, and I'm looking to you to tell me if I need to. Again, it's all posture. You can speak the truth in love to someone, but if they're not going to posture to receive it from you, God can speak the truth in love to us. If we're not postured to receive it, we don't get it. It's not going to produce anything. And here's the thought on that. And with this, I'll end, and we'll be done for the night. You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. Okay? You have the beginning, and you have the end stated. But the process was never stated there. There is a process between those two. Once you know the truth, now you have to decide between error and truth. Because you were obviously in error. And then he showed you truth. So now you've got to decide, am I going with the truth, or am I sticking with what I want, my belief, whatever it is. Okay? If you say, okay, I'm going to make the decision to go with truth, there is now a transition period that takes place to integrate that truth into your life. You know, how many of us know that just because you say, that is good, I'm going to do that. All your old habits, all your old ways of doing things don't just immediately fall off and you automatically start doing it that way. Boy, there's a transition period there. And the quicker the better. But there's a transition period. Once you choose truth and make the transition, you will be free. So Jesus gave the starting point and he gave the ending point. Well, at any point in there, we can, even though what Jesus said is absolutely correct, we can flub that up at any point. We can realize we're wrong, accept this is truth, I'm going to do this, but the transition is too hard, and we quit. Was that person ever find freedom? Well, they know the truth, but they didn't let it renew them, change them from glory to glory. They quit. It got too hard. Too much, cost me too much, it's too difficult, whatever. They quit. Well, then what Jesus said is wrong. No. You will know the truth, and truth will bring you freedom. But there's a couple steps in between you're going to go through before you get your freedom. Same thing with this, and teenagers, of course, you pick the hardest bunch. Because they don't want, when I was a teenager, I could have told my dad how to run the farm. I didn't need his help in that, we think we know everything. So to listen to someone trying to mentor us is really hard. But yet there's teenagers who do and who will. And they'll posture themselves like, that's good input, I'll think about that. And you could give the same input to two different people, and one it works and the other one it doesn't work. Was that your fault? Maybe if you came across like a manager or like an abuser or something like that, then maybe, huh? But then again, it might be they're just not receiving it. I'm sure God talked this thing over with Lucifer before he fell. I'm sure he did. I mean, I know my Father well enough to know he communicates. And when Lucifer came and sat up beside his throne and said, hey, Dad, I'm going to be just like you. I'm going to set my throne right beside yours. I am sure he said, excuse me? Now let's talk about this. And tried to reason with him. He didn't listen. Well, the end result didn't turn out well. Was that God's fault? No, it was the posture Lucifer took. That answer your question? Yeah. Okay, we're good. Hopefully you got something out of this. Thank you.